we see that there's some level of presumptuousness, maybe even some arrogance into how we perceive Jesus. So I have questions, and it's not a question to be answered, but the question we have to ask ourselves is, what brought us here today? What brought us today here? Is it knowing that there is a God? Or are we here in case there's a God? Is this like, just in case there's a God, I'm going to come and I'm going to go through the motions? Or because there is a God? And we approach God with a reality and a fear. Because in case there's a God, we come so we can do service, we can do cleaning, we can do administrative, we can do Sunday school, we can even lead people in prayer. It could be a force of habit. This is what I do Sundays. I'd rather do this than, stay at home. Are there special circumstances why I came? Is it the Eid? Is it a festival? Is it because I'm in need of something, like there's a problem in my own life that I think I need to now approach God and ask Him for something? That's why I'm here? Is it because that's what a good Christian does? They just go to church on Sundays? Is it because I just want to maintain good standings with God? Or is it social? Who is this God that you worship? Is He your Savior? Is He a problem solver? Is He your provider? Is He your protector? Is He your? Does He belong to you? He's your Savior. He gives you. So He belongs to me because He gives me things. Or is He because He's your Lord? See, what does Lord mean? It means there's a level of obedience that comes with it. You can call Him Lord, but did you make Him Lord? What does making Him your Lord mean? Matthew 7, verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, on that day, what day is that? On that day, because that day will come. Many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then will I declare to them, I never knew you. I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. That scares me when I hear that. That puts in me a fear of, these are not atheists. These people cast out demons, and they prophesied. So, who of us are casting out demons and prophesying and doing works, great works in His name? How many of us are doing that? And will we hear, I never knew you? So then, what does it mean, I never knew you? Or is it, you never knew me? you never knew me. You never knew me. Because we know the verse, let's just make sure I quote it correctly. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. It means it starts with fear. You have to enter your relationship first with fear. There's 54 references in the Bible that talks about hell. And hell is a real thing, my brothers and sisters. It talks about eternal. It's eternal. And I used to think as a kid when I was young, you know, I would go to the beach and I would scoop up a handful of sand, and I would think to myself about, like, what if each grain in my hand of sand was like a minute? How many minutes is this? What if each grain of sand was an hour? What if each grain of sand is a day? What if each grain of sand is a year? What if each grain of sand is 1,000,000 years? And that's in my hand. And then I look at the beach and I'm thinking to myself, what is eternity? What does that mean? It scares me. It's just the idea of eternity, no matter how you approach it, it scares me. Like, I don't think I want anything for eternity. It scares me to think about there being no end to this, whatever it is. And you all need to meditate on the idea of what eternity is. So then, doesn't that humble you, the idea of eternity? It makes you feel just how small you really are and how small your life and your time on earth is? That where's your investment? Where are you investing? Even Abuna Andrew was talking about, where do you put your investment today? I love the story of Job, because I kind of relate to him on a very small level. Because here you got this guy, you know, he loved God. He did love God. And Satan tells God, he loves you because look how good you treat him. So then, what does God do? Is God proving to Satan? Does God need to prove anything to Satan? Or is God giving Job an opportunity? Like, I don't care if Satan thinks, you know, one way or the other. The hell with Satan. Really. But Job has he's on easy street right now. And I want him to go through the fire. And I mean, you want to talk about suffering. I mean, God made an example of suffering. He made an example out of this guy. But he lost his whole family and he lost his whole fortune. And then he was surrounded by friends who just rubbed it in his face. So in the book of Job, it's like, I don't even know how many chapters. It's like 40-something, yeah. And it's like the first 3 verses is like, you know, he's good, right? After that, it goes downhill. The first 3 verses, and then it all from there, just one thing after the other. So Job starts questioning God, right? Starts questioning God. And in chapter 38, the Lord speaks. I mean, I as your brother, I highly recommend you guys read chapters 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. From 38 to 42. Because when God speaks, he starts like telling him, hey boy, where were you when I created the world? Like, question that. You're gonna answer these questions. You're gonna listen, and you're gonna answer every one of these questions I'm about to ask you. And 38 is like 40 questions, and then it doesn't end there. 39, a bunch of other questions. Where were you here? How do you tell me how you understand this? You know, show me your knowledge. Show me your knowledge, boy. And then finally, this poor guy, chapter 42, after just I mean, he's already taken a shellacking. And then that's just the world shellacking him, right? Now God is, I mean, when God speaks to you, I've had moments where I've had God speak to me, okay? And it's unbearable. And here's one question after the other, after the other, after the other. And Job is just taking it. And you know he's not just like, yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good point, God. You know, he's on his face. And when Job finally musters up some words, he says, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. You asked, who is this that obscures my plans without knowledge? Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. You said, listen now, and I will speak. I will question you, and you shall answer me. My ears have heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. That's heavy. It's like God didn't console him at all. He didn't say, Habibi, I know I've been tough with you. It's okay, ma'alish. Buck up. Carry your cross. There's a heaven for you. He didn't do any of that. And after Job came to himself and realized just the grandeur and the magnificence of God, that the only thing he could realize is just how small he is. And that's a revelation, isn't it? You want to talk about fear? Job felt it. Please, my brothers and sisters, read those chapters today. It's not a lot of reading. But man, what a God we have. You know, I always like to give a talk around Thanksgiving time because I challenge the whole holiday, because, you know, and a lot of you have heard me say this before. You know, you get together with the people you love, and you're surrounded by the food you love, and then you go around the table and you say the things that you're thankful for. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my wife or my husband. I'm thankful for my beautiful children. I'm thankful for my job. I'm thankful for my home. I'm thankful, thankful, thankful. But do you ever thank God? I mean, do you really thank Him for any condition, every condition, and whatever condition? Do you even understand what that means? Do you thank God for your suffering? Would you dare thank God for your suffering? People look at you like you're some kind of a jerk, right? Like, you got to be kidding me. Thankful for your suffering? Why should you be thankful for your suffering? What happens when you suffer? The moment you experience it, the first thing you say is, God, take this away from me. I don't want this. Why would God take that away from you? What was your instinct when it first occurred? It drew you to Him. Why would He take that away? And why would you pray that He take it away? Because you don't want it. Because it doesn't comply with your lifestyle. This is crimping my style. Janie, can you give her? I want to talk to you about, I kind of know a little bit of suffering. And I'll talk to you about the journey that I've been on. Because people that know me my whole life, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not a smart man. I'm not a talented person. But I always was close to God. I mean, I learned at a very young age what hell is. And I cling to God. And He took me as His son. And He taught me things. And I thought I was close to Him. And I loved Him. And then He takes my legs away from me. He takes my dignity away from me. He takes my strength away from me. He took all the things that I held in high regard about myself away from me. The things that I worked so hard to build. Because I wasn't given much to start in life. But I worked really hard. And I wanted to present to God this specimen that He could be proud of. Because I was a nobody, I was weak, I was nothing. And I worked so hard to build the kind of man I thought He wanted me to be. And then He took that all away. That I didn't know, there was nothing left of what I built of me. It was completely put to rubble. And I was confused. I said, take this away from me. I don't want this. I thought we were good. And then I was faced with a question. What kind of a man are you going to be? Are you going to be the man that your father was? The one that used to be abusive to his wife and son? And take out his hostility and frustration on your family? Or are you going to trust God and carry your cross? So I decided I'm going to carry this cross. And it's been a very, tumultuous road. I don't show people my suffering. I don't show it because it makes people uncomfortable. And some people who have seen it have kind of turned away. And so I don't show it because it's for me and God. God knows my suffering. He knows my anguish. But I don't want people to see that because I want people to still be able to approach me and be comfortable around me. But this fire that I'm in has really opened my eyes to see truth and to see the magnificence of God. Not in its entirety, just a little bit. Have you guys ever seen, what is that, Forrest Gump? You know the scene where, is it Captain Dan? Yeah, Lieutenant Dan? Yeah. Where he gets so pissed off at God and he's yelling at him, show yourself, show yourself. It's on the ship and it's raining, and I've had those moments and lots of them where I'm alone in the house and nobody's around and I'm just yelling at him. Show yourself. And at the end of those moments, I found myself laughing, filled with this joy, because he allowed me to experience just a little bit of his magnificence, how awesome he is. And I'm at the point now, and believe me when I say this, is I wouldn't trade this chair for anything in the world except for his glorification. If and when I get out of this chair, people will glorify God. But I don't want to get out of it. I want this chair. I want this suffering. I want to be able to present God a real sacrifice, a sacrifice of the self. I want to really offer God me. The hell with my ego, the hell with my strength, the hell with my success, the hell with everything that I thought I held in such high regard. I don't want any of it. I want to present to God a broken man. I want to approach God in the most broken way. Psalm 50 says what? A broken and contrite God will love, or a broken and contrite heart God will not despise. A broken and contrite heart God will not despise. Fear. There should be a fear about approaching God in some sort of sense of, hey, I'm doing all right. I'm pretty good. I don't do those things. At least I don't do those things. What do you call that? What do you call that where you're not that, but you're not this? Lukewarm? What does God say in Revelations about lukewarmness? I will vomit you. Vomit. It's so unsettling in me that it's like I cannot contain it. I cannot contain you. I can't contain you. It's not like I'm going to just, set you aside. I'm going to vomit you out. When John, who wrote Revelation? John the what? The beloved. He loved God. And when the heavens opened and he was told to write what he saw, what was the first thing he said? I fell on my face as if I were dead. When I beheld his glory, I fell as if I was dead. You think when we see Jesus, we're going to be like, hey, Jesus. How you doing? I heard good things. Or are you going to fall on your face? It's an awesome and terrible moment. Fear God, my brothers and sisters. Fear him first. Fear God. And I promise you, through that fear will come wisdom, and through wisdom you will find just how much you love him. You can't not love him when you've tasted him. God gave me just a little taste, just a little bit. And I remember just like, I want more, I want more. Read the book of Matthew. Read the book of Matthew. Because it's very clear that there is punishment. But just like anything, right? Just like in life, right? The reason why your kids do what you tell them is because if they don't, they're going to get punished, right? If you don't do this, I'm going to spank you. I'm going to take this away from you. So they do it out of what? Fear. But, I mean, can you imagine, if you, and we're all adults, if your mom told you, did you clean your house today? I mean, did you do something today? Are you going to do it out of motivation of fear of your mom and dad at this age? Can you imagine fearing your parents at this age? No, you look back in retrospect and you say, God, my mom and dad really loved me. And I want to return the love. Now that may not be your parents, but when you make God your father, I mean real father, like God is my father. I don't say that figuratively. When we say our Father, like I get jealous. Like I don't want to share him with any of you. He's my dad. I never had a dad. He's my dad. When you see God as your father, you're like, why should I love you? Why should I love you? I'll do what you say because I'm afraid of you. But it's that journey through what I would say suffering. It's the fire. It's the fire that separates. It's like when you look at wheat and chaff, right? You got the wheat and you got the chaff. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? You beat it, grind it. You put it through some punishment. Because we all have chaff. And he wants to separate the wheat from the chaff. Take your beatings, take your punishments, and be thankful for them. That's what brings you to him. don't want a happy, good life. He who seeks to preserve his life loses it, and he who seeks to lose his life finds it. That's some irony for you, isn't it? I mean, when you think of God, it's all irony. The last will be first and the first will be last. Like, you could write, I mean, it's all irony. What you think isn't what it is. You don't have your own personal Jesus, my friends. There is a Jesus, there is a God, and he has rules and commandments. Fear him. Why are you here today? Because you fear him? Because you love him? Or are you here just in case he's there? When you make him Lord, when things come your way, you say, yes, Lord, don't you? You don't say, hey, I don't want this. This isn't for me. I need a Savior. Save me from this. Well, yeah, he'll save you. But you have to make him Lord first. And when I say Lord, it means there's nothing between you and him. You don't just say, Lord, Lord. You have to make him your priority. Like, yes, Lord. When Job finally said, I despise myself, that was his crucifixion. He gave up himself. And he didn't do it because he knew, there's going to be some, fun times ahead. He did it because he realized just how small he was and how great and grand God is. My mom, when we were young, if the wind was strong, she'd freak out. If there was thunder and lightning, she'd freak out. If there was an earthquake, she'd freak out. So, I was born or raised to think those were things to be afraid of. So, anytime the wind would blow, I'd be afraid. And then as I got older, I started really enjoying to see God's just a little bit of his might. Now when there's a thunderstorm and it's raining and pouring, I take Elizabeth out with me and I'm like, look at this. Look at this. This is just a little bit of him, he's just whispering. That thunder you hear, it's just him whispering. What a mighty God. Love him. When you're thankful, don't be thankful for the things you got. Be thankful for things you don't have and you can't attain. That day is coming when there's going to be judgment, and it's going to be an awesome and terrible day. It's going to happen. If you're a Christian and you're not going through the motions, you believe that day will come. And I know I'm going to be scared, but I'm going to be just I want to be part of that. I want to be on that side. I want to be witness to that magnificent day and to see his glory. What kind of power is that? What does that look like? That awesome and terrible day. All right, there's two kinds of fear. You have it, but you don't have both. You can't have both kinds of fear. You have one or the other. You have the fear of you're afraid of being sick. You're afraid of poverty. You're afraid of humiliation. You're afraid of death. Okay. You have those fears. You want to preserve what you have. You want to control, and you want to protect. Or you have the fear of God in you. and when you have the fear of God, you just know how awesome he is, then what do you have, really? You become kind of fearless, don't you? You're not afraid of anything. Death, is that the best you can do to me? Do you know who my God is? You can't do a thing unless God permits it. I love the story of when Jesus was approached that demon-possessed man, and the demons begged Jesus. They asked for his permission to go to the pigs. And Jesus is like, yeah, sure, go to the pigs. These are devils know, the devil knows God. We don't know God, but the devil does. The devil is afraid of God? What kind of a God is this? Who is this God? That the sea parts, the waters part, the water listens to God. The sun will dim its light before God. Who is this God that I can't wait? This life has nothing for me. And I'm so thankful that I'm more of a spectator in life now than an actor. I'm just not an actor. In this chair, I'm sitting with popcorn watching everybody else live. I'm not living. I'm not living. I'm watching everybody else live life. And I just see, it's like Disneyland. You know what I mean? When you walk through Main Street, Disney, it's like beautiful. Wow, look at all these like shops. And then you go to Google Earth, and you look down, it's just all like industrial. Like you see behind the facade, it's just, like compressors and ducts and, like, what's that? Well, the landscape, you're on the ground, you're looking at things, and you're like, wow, it's so beautiful here. It is the greatest place on earth. And then you look at it from the top where you have perspective. You're like, it's just a lot of machinery. And I wonder if like that's what God does when he elevates you above the earth and he lets you see what it is. It's just all smoke and mirrors. It's just a facade. Why do you want that? Why are you investing in this crap? There's a God that's just like, wow, that's what I want. That's real. To live in truth or to be deceived, you choose. But you can't let anything get in between you and God. Either be hot or cold, but don't be in the middle. It's like Mr. Miyagi said, right? Either you karate yes or you karate no, but you karate so squash like a bug. It's one of the greatest lines. Peter, that was for you. I didn't plan to say any of that, by the way. I don't know. I think I said what I needed to say. Oh, yeah. Going back to your own personal Jesus. Like we like to quote C.S. Lewis a lot. Like there's a gospel according to Saint C.S. Lewis. And I've heard a lot of people say, hell is like, the key out of hell is on the inside, right? Something like that. The The way to unlock the door out of hell is from the inside. And I'll say that that's true to some extent because I know people who are in hell on earth. I know them. I've seen them. I know them well. And these people can unlock that door and get out of their own hell on earth. But let's not forget the story of the rich man and Lazarus. Does anybody know what the name Lazarus means? It means whom God has helped. Okay? So the story goes, here's Lazarus, he's poor, he's sick, the dogs are licking his wounds, and the rich man could give a damn. And they both die. And the rich man is in hell, and he sees Lazarus in the arms of Abraham in heaven. Right? And this rich man is such a he can't help himself. He's such an arrogant man, even in hell, that he says, Father Abraham, send Lazarus, let him dip his finger in water and let him quench my tongue. Like, send Lazarus. Can't help but being arrogant. And Abraham's like, sorry, no can do. There's a chasm between us. Nobody can cross over. You can't come to me, I can't come to you. So then what does the rich man say? Well, at least warn my brothers. They're on the same path that I was on. Warn them. And Abraham says, sorry, dude, but they've got their prophets. You know, they've been warned already. Like, I mean, it should give you pause. It should give you pause. Oh. I'm sorry, forgive me, because I didn't want to give this talk because it's heavy. And I'm, I think of St. George a lot. And I think about what he's gone through. And I can guarantee you, he didn't mosey on into heaven. He wasn't like, what do you think, Jesus? How do you like that? I did good, huh? You see what I did down there for 7 years? I did good, huh? I guarantee you, he fell on his face before Jesus Christ. Don't be deceived, my brothers and sisters. It's not enough. We have to suffer. We have to want suffering. It's what's going to prove our true faith. Accept your suffering. Want your suffering. There are saints who asked for sickness. What kind of crazy person does that? Well, a person who knows better. I've talked to a lot of you guys. A lot of you guys have confided in me. I'll end with this. And a lot of you are living in hell. Put the fear of God in you first and watch what happens in your life. Don't fear the body. Don't fear poverty. Don't fear losing your job. Don't fear these things that are fleeting away anyway. They're going to be gone anyway. Don't fear those things. Those are good as gone. Know that. All these things that you are holding so precious are as good as gone. Accept that. I've talked to your kids. Even in Sunday school, I ask them, who here needs God? And every one of them, like trained seals, that's what I'm supposed to do this, right? Need God? Hand up, right? That's what I'm taught to do. But do they really need God? Let me ask you the same question. Do you need God? Well, you got a pretty good job. You got a good wife. You got a good husband. You got a good life. You got a good career. You built yourself something pretty nice. Do you need God? I mean, do you really need Him? Do you need Him to protect that? Do you need God to protect your little empire, your little kingdom? Is that why you need Him? Why do you need God? If you realized how small you are, you would realize just how much you need Him. Only through fear, though. Your kids don't need God. They just need your credit card to go through. They just need to make sure there's food on the table. What are you teaching your children? What are you teaching? What is this about, guys? Is this about getting into a good college and, making it pretty good, but doing it all in the name of God? What is this all about? What is earth? I'll argue that earth is purgatory. Earth is our opportunity to experience hell for a period of time before it's eternal. Or are you so busy trying to experience life to its fullest? You need to experience the world so that you reject it. That's where you need to be. That's what life is about, to experience it so that you end up rejecting it. Not having these fond memories and just, Facebooking everything you do. And what are you teaching your children? To make God your priority? If you love your children, is that what it's about? A lot of you guys that I've talked to read a lot of books. But don't forget to read your Bible. Don't veer off too far away from home. Because you can find yourself reading many, many books and still being starving, still feeling starved. Read your Bible. It's not just a book. There's something about it. And I'm saying this all out of love. You guys know I love you. And I'm in no way saved. I'm not saved, but I fear Him. I fear God. And that's a good thing. A broken and contrite heart, God will not despise. And I look at this every time I'm in here, I just meditate on this picture. If we don't look like this, this is God looking like this. If we don't look like this, we're not broken enough. Let the world break you. Let it. Don't fight it. It's good. God allowed it. It takes the edge out of things, doesn't it? When you think about your suffering, if somebody wrongs you, if somebody does something wrong to you, it's because God allowed it, didn't He? He allowed it. Why did He allow it? It's good for you. But God allowed, the devils begged Him to go into pigs with His permission. He's like, yeah. I want this guy to come into your life right now and make you sad and miserable. I want you to stop walking. I want you to suffer these pains. I want your marriage to be disrupted. I want your children to suffer. I want it. I'm your Lord. I command it. Accept it or reject it. That's the only control you've got. Accept or reject. It's very binary. And when you accept God's will every step of the way, there's always a fork in the road. I'm here, something happened, I can accept it or reject it. If I reject it, that's a path to hell. If I accept it, move on to the next thing. Accept or reject. Next thing. Accept or reject. That's for your edification. That's your path. And not everybody's path is straight. In fact, I would argue if your path is that straight, it's probably not being challenged. Become one with your suffering. Embrace it. Learn from it. Let it break you. Give thanks for it. These are all crazy talk. But I'm not coming at you like, Mr. America. I mean, look at me. I mean, this is where I've arrived in my own journey, and I'm sharing it with you. And I guess God has allowed me to be somewhat of an authority on suffering. So I'm sharing it with you. So accept it or reject it, but the choice is yours. Let go of all of your egos. Let go of all of your rights. And let the world do what it needs to do to you so that you look like this. Look what the world did to him. If you don't look like this, then you don't look like him. Then he'll say, I never knew you. Anybody want to add to what I had to say? I'm done.
First of all, thank you, Bookman. That was amazing. But you said a couple times, I don't want to give this talk, but I encourage you to say we need to hear from people's experiences because we all live in our own world and we don't see that other side of people. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing that because we need to hear stuff like that so we understand the struggles that we go through and that we're not alone and that we all go through different struggles. And so when we hear from other people, it encourages us. So thank you. Thank you, Bookman. Any questions?
How do we reconcile the fear of God with the love of God? So, as you said, fear casts out all wisdom. But St. John the Beloved, who you referenced, also said, love casts out all fear. So, how do we reconcile those two ideas?
How do we reconcile the fear of the Lord with the love of the Lord?
Yeah.
It's through faith. It's just walking through the fire. You'll never love him if you don't walk through the fire. It's there for a reason. It's so that you see truth for what it is. How can you love God and not live in truth? And what is separating us from truth? It's distractions, right? It's like what suffering does, and we've talked about this before, and it's to your point too, Randy. You gave a wonderful talk about the sin of busyness. That's the chaff, right? And so if our relationship with God isn't pure, then how can you love him? It's like, can you imagine eating a bowl of, making bread with chaff in it? What would you do? You'd spit it out, right? So in order to have pure wheat, you have to separate the chaff. You have to have the chaff removed away from you. So it's through faith and trust in God. If you never had that, then you're kind of doomed. If you don't have that faith and trust in God, then it's like, well, then where are you headed? But if you trust God and you have faith in God, and it's like the moment this happened to me, I could have become a drunkard. I could have just started drinking my way and being an awful husband and wife. I'm that already, but I mean, at least I'm sober. Right? You're a really bad wife. I am a bad wife. Did I say that? Father.
I also wanted to add what Bookman said earlier. He says, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So when we start to have the true understanding and wisdom of who God is, then we understand God is love. So I think the fear is drawing away from the world, and then God brings it to Him. So we have to fear to start to remove ourselves from the world. So I think it's that transition.
I was just going to add something. I mean, I think, like in thinking about what you're saying, I think a lot of people's path to that love can be through suffering. But I think there's also other paths to to experience that love and to experience that blessing of really knowing and loving God. I think for some of us, probably myself included, there is an element to needing that suffering to draw you near to Him. We've talked a lot about that when we've gotten together, but I think for other people, I see that there's other paths to that. So, and perhaps I don't know their journeys of suffering. Perhaps they just have concealed that from me. But I think there are people out there who, I think we talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago, who are just born with that faith and that love and that knowledge. Some people develop it through other experiences, like someone like Saint Therese of Lisieux, who, obviously she passed early, but she had a simplicity of faith where she found the magnificence of God in everything around her. I don't know her story well enough to know if that was through early suffering or if that's something she came to before. So I guess my point is, I think that suffering can be a valuable avenue to developing that love for God, but I don't think it's an exclusive path to that. And I guess that's my comment.
I guess I want to comment on your not wanting to give this talk. I'll share something I learned from one of the saints.
That's ironic, by the way, because you're up soon.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, I don't want to mention the name of the saint, but let's just say he's the speaker today. Anyway, one of the things that I experienced in talking to you about some of my own issues is the great consolation I received from hearing things I didn't want to hear, to hearing things that I know were true but needed to be said. And what occurred to me after our talks is the verse in, I think it's 2 Corinthians, where St. Paul says, "For our suffering is for your consolation." And it is often the case that our suffering may have nothing to do with us. And our suffering may be for God's glory, for some other member of the church that's really struggling and sees somebody else suffering, but with great fear and love and glory for God. And that face that you've shown becomes visible to some other person. And we don't think that way, sadly. Sometimes we think our suffering is our suffering. But it's not really our suffering, it's his suffering. We forget that each one of us is his body. And so when each one of us suffers, he suffers.
Right.
And he continues to suffer. And he doesn't love it when he sees, right? But he permits it for a reason, who knows? But that's what I learned, that someone suffering could be my comfort. And I still take great comfort in that.
Yeah, I'll say that sometimes when I'm in bed at night, the pain is so severe, I feel like I'm literally on fire. And I can't breathe. And I can't move. And I don't want to wake up my wife. She's tired already. And I remember just there are moments where I'm staring at the icon of Jesus Christ in my room. And I can feel he's looking at me with the same look, the same suffering. And he asks me, "Will you suffer with me?" This is a bonding moment. It's a very intimate moment. The world doesn't exist at that moment for me. It's just him and me. And I feel like there's a connection that's bonding us together that it's like, yes, Lord, I will suffer with you. And I can't think of any other way to get to that sort of level of intimacy without, at least for me, because I don't know anything but. My relationship with God has always been one of suffering. So I don't know, and I believe Peter when he talks about there's other avenues. But I don't know those. All I can tell you is, for me, the life of suffering that I've been given has been a very blessed thing. That I have intimate moments with my Lord that I wouldn't trade for anything. And so I used to say, I wish this on no one. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I wish everyone could experience some of the things I've experienced. And it's only through faith that it's like, I trust you, Lord, I'll carry this cross. Like, I kind of wish my dad did the same thing. But he didn't. He rejected it.
Any other?
Thank you for the talk. One verse came twice in the Bible, which is, for you we die all day. It was mentioned in Psalms, and St. Paul mentioned again. And there's a very few of those verses that came in twice. This one always reminds me that without a suffering, we're not going to get anywhere. To me, it's like you either sit on a bullet train to Jesus, or you just throw yourself under it, because you cannot choose at some point what to do, other than one of those two choices. Thank you for sharing your experience, and like you mentioned, we all live in a big Disneyland. It's just, most of it is fake. We like to show the best of ourselves, because when people see your suffering, they try to get away from you because they think, okay, this is going to be boring, or this is going to be too much on me to handle. If you look at any social media, you see people sharing a lot of good stuff. If one person shares one kind of dark thing or a little bit of emotions, you see that a lot of people stay away from them, and that's so sad, because this is really the person that needs you, not the one that wants all the likes. So thank you for sharing yourself again, and appreciate it.
Yeah, I think when we're asked to give a talk, sometimes we're like, hey, I want to come up with something pretty thought-provoking and clever, right? And it's almost like a competition. When you're giving a talk, you're like, hey, I want to really get people to think. But in this, that's not my intention at all. I'm not, like I tell people, I'm not interested in people coming up to me and telling me, hey, that was a really good talk, made me feel inspired or motivated. Because I'm not a Hallmark card. You want to feel inspiration, there's plenty of cards out there to read. It's a way of life. It's like Christianity. You can't just sit on the label of Christianity. There's a life. There's a physicality to it. You have to put it into practice. So, I really didn't want to give this talk, but I feel like sometimes our talks are maybe sometimes a little watered down, or it's just to be, insightful. And I'm coming from a place of love here, and I'm trying to provide maybe a little bit of an awakening that nothing should come in between you and your God. I know a lot of people come up to me and they say, I don't come to church anymore because the people, the priest. I used to serve, I used to work in the kitchen, I used to do this, and they all took control, and so because I'm not allowed in that circle anymore, I'm not coming to church anymore. I've heard a lot of people tell me stuff like that. It's like, you're letting something getting in between you and God. That means you don't understand you don't have that fear of God. You have to put everything aside, and nothing should separate you between you and the Eucharist. Nothing. And I started off by telling you guys, especially the ones who knew me as a child, I'm not a smart person. I got D's and C's all my life in high school. And it's like, I will never tell anybody my SAT score. That goes to the grave with me. But I just put my trust in God, and He made me an engineer. And I have a good life, and I have a gorgeous wife, and I have a beautiful daughter, and I have a wonderful home. It's like, and at work, I'm not celebrated. How about that? At work, I'm not popular. But God has given me my portion. You have your portion. Put the fear of God in you first. You'll have your portion. You don't have to sacrifice God for something earthly. Never. It means you don't have the fear of God in you.
Okay, let's stand up and pray. Through the intercessions of our Virgin Theotokos, Mother of God, Saint Mary, Archangel Michael, Saint John the Baptist, Saint John the Beloved, Saint Peter, Saint Paul, and all your prophets and saints who have pleased do since the beginning, hear us when we pray to you with all thanksgiving. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever.